Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this Level 1 Cricket South Africa umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp and my co-presenter for this evening will be Tom Mukarosi. And we will have a guest lecturer for this evening as well, and Tom will introduce him to you after his round of laws. Tonight I will be covering laws 32, 33, 34, 35 and 36. Tom will do 37 till 40 and then our guest lecturer will do a match preparation presentation. So to kick off this evening, the first mode of dismissal. There are 9 modes of dismissals. First one being bold. Let's have a look how a batter is out bowled. So a batter is out bowled if the delivery not being a no ball and the wicket is put down by the ball. So that is important for a batter or striker to be out bowled. It shouldn't be a no ball. And the ball needs to put the wicket down. Even if it first touches the striker's bat or any part of the striker's person, as long as the ball puts the wicket down, then the striker will be out bowled. The striker shall not be out bowled if the ball has been in contact with any other player or umpire. Bowled will always take precedence. What does that mean? Sometimes you will find a striker being out in more than one mode. A striker may be out bowled and caught of the same delivery. So which one do you take? The law tells us that bowled is boss. If bowled is one of the ways how the striker was dismissed, bowled will always be the boss. Caught. Let's look at a video.
Fair catch. A catch shall be considered fair if the ball is held in a fielder's hand, hugged to the body of the catcher, or accidentally lodges in his or her clothing, helmet, or protective equipment. But of course, this being cricket, it isn't always that simple. If a fielder deliberately uses an item of clothing to try to catch the ball, it is not out, and 5 penalty runs are awarded to the batting side. However, the ball can be caught after it has deflected off the other batsman, an umpire, another fielder, including off a helmet being worn, or even if it lodges in a fielder's helmet. Perhaps the main criterion for a catch to be considered fair is that the ball must not touch the ground before being caught. Here, for example, the ball does not touch the ground even though the hand holding it does so in effecting the catch. This is a fair catch. And then there is the question of catches near the boundary. This is such an interesting subject that we've given it a film all of its own. To catch up on everything to do with catching, simply refer to Law 33 in the Blue Book.
So, how many runs are scored if the striker is out caught? So, this is a scenario, if you can visualize this, the striker pulls the ball goes high up in the air, and while the ball is in the air, before the catch gets taken, the batters run 2 runs. How many runs will be scored? The law tells us that if a striker is dismissed caught, no runs to be scored other than penalties. So in my scenario, even though the batters completed 2 runs before the catch was taken, that those 2 runs will not count. If a batter is out caught, no runs to be scored. In the previous law, which was bold, we said that bold is boss. If a striker is dismissed by more than one mode of dismissal, you will always take bold. Bold will be boss. Who is second in charge? Second is court. And there is a question in the exam on this. So if a striker is dismissed of more than one mode of dismissal from a particular delivery, and one of them is court will take precedence. So bold first, court is number 2. Third mode of dismissal, hit the ball twice. Let's look at a video.
Hit the ball twice. Hit the ball twice and you're out. Unless, of course, you're defending your wicket or it was accidental, in which case you're still in. The striker is out, hit the ball twice, if, while the ball is in play, it strikes any part of his person or is struck by his bat and, before the ball has been touched by a fielder, he willfully strikes it again with his bat or person. The key word here is willfully. But if this had happened instead, the batsman would remain in. In other words, inadvertent double strikes don't count. The batsman is allowed to hit the ball a second time in order to guard his wicket. He can use his bat or almost any part of his body. He cannot, however, use a hand that's not holding the bat. The only time you can't use your bat to hit the ball twice to defend your wicket is when it would prevent a catch. The batsman can also hit the ball a second time in order to return it to a fielder, as long as a fielder has given him permission to do so. If you'd like to swat up on this a bit more, simply turn to Law 34 in the Blue Book, where you'll find all the nitty-gritty detail you need.
So just to confirm again, the law tells us that if you willfully hit the ball a second time, you shall be given out hit the ball twice. If it's accidentally, then it will be not out. You are allowed to hit the ball a second time or a third time only to protect your wickets. So in the scenario where you played forward, block the ball, and then the ball slowly rolls towards your stumps, the law allows you to protect your stumps by you can either kick it away or you can use your bat to hit the ball away. That's the only time where you are legally allowed to hit the ball a second time. So now, let's say you legally protected your wicket. So now the ball rolled towards your wicket. The law allows you to hit the ball with the bat to protect your wicket. Now you've hit it so hard and it let's say rolls to the square leg boundary. Are you allowed to run? Yes or no? The law tells us that no, you're not allowed to run. No runs shall be scored if you legally hit the ball a second time. So if it happens, the law tells us firstly what you need to do. So now the ball rolls towards the stumps. The batter protects his or her wicket. The ball now goes to, let's say, the square leg, towards the square leg boundary. They now start to run. Don't call dead ball immediately. Delay your call until they've completed the first run. Why do you delay your call? You need to give the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the batters. They're not supposed to run. But if they are stupid enough to run, delay your call until they've completed the first run. Only once they've completed the first run, then you call and signal dead ball. And then you'll also send the batters back to their original ends because that run will not count. If the batter hits it so hard and it actually goes over the boundary, so the batter protects his or her wicket and He hit it so hard, it actually goes over the boundary. Once it goes over the boundary, you'll call and signal dead ball, and those 4 runs will not be allowed. So we've just heard that you should call and signal dead ball upon completion of the first run, or if it goes over the boundary, then you'll call and signal dead ball. If they did or do decide to run and have completed the first run, then you'll call and signal dead ball. You'll then disallow the runs and you'll send the batters back to their original ends. If there was a no ball, you'll signal it to the scorers, and you shall award any 5-run penalties that is applicable, except if the ball should hit the helmet that was placed behind the keeper. Hit wicket. So how will you be out hit wicket? Firstly, for the striker to be out hit wicket, it can only happen after the bowler entered his or her delivery stride. So when do your delivery stride starts? It starts when your back foot lands. So if you can visualize, the delivery stride of a bowler starts when that back foot lands. So hit wicket can only happen after that. So only once that back foot lands, then the striker can be given out hit wicket. In the next slide, we'll see what happens if the wicket gets put down before the bowler enters his or her delivery stride. But for now, the important thing is for a striker to be given out hit wicket, it can only happen after the bowler entered his or her delivery stride. So how can you be out wicket? The law tells us firstly that any action that is taken by the striker in preparing to receive or receiving a delivery. Example of this, you'll find some batters have trigger movements, whether it's back and across. That is an example of an action taken by the striker in receiving the delivery. So if the batter stands deep in the crease and there's a back and across movement and the bowler has entered the delivery stride, and because of the back and across movement, the striker actually trams on the stumps. Wicket is down, bails are dislodged, wicket is down, striker should be given out hit wicket. Another example of action taken by the batter, sometimes the batter will have a backlift, so the bat will be on the ground as the bowler is running in. When the bowler is fairly close, the striker will then lift the bat up to receive the delivery. That's also an action. If, again, the striker deep inside the crease and lifting up the bat, the bowler's entered the delivery stride, and because of the action of lifting up the bat, the striker dislodges the bells, the wicket is down, striker will be given out hit wicket. The striker shall also be given out hit wicket in setting off for the first run, and importantly, it needs to be immediately after playing at the ball. So the important word here is immediately. So if you can just visualize, the striker plays the ball into the covers, and now the striker wants to set off for a single. The law wants that setting off for that first run to be immediately. So the striker needs to hit the ball into the covers and immediately set off for the first run. And as the striker setting off, the back foot slides and it takes off the bells with the wicket down. In that case, on appeal, striker shall be out hit wicket. But importantly, it needs to be immediately in setting off for the first run. If it's not immediate and the striker then puts down the wicket, it shall then be not out. An example of this, striker plays the ball into the covers And as the ball goes towards, let's say the mid-off fielder, the striker actually shouts to the non-striker, wait, wait, wait. And the reason for the wait call is to see whether the ball goes past the middle fielder or not. So as the striker is saying, wait, 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 and then in seeing that the ball goes past the middle fielder, then the striker sets off for that first run. And as the striker is setting off, back foot slips, slides, goes against the wickets, bells are down, wicket is down. In that case, striker will be not out, hit wicket, and the reason is it was not immediate. There was a pause between the striker hitting the ball and setting off for the first run. So just what I want you to take away from point number 2 is it needs to happen immediately. Point number 3 is exactly the same as point number 2. The only difference here is the striker did not attempt to play the ball. The striker, let's say, shouldered arms. And then after shouldering arms, the ball actually went through the keeper's legs. So if the striker then sets off immediately, foot slides, put down the bells, wicket is down, out wicket. If the striker does not set off immediately, then striker, and then only puts the wicket down, striker will be not out. Striker will also be out hit wicket if the striker tries to lawfully protect his or her wicket. Striker is played forward, the ball now slowly rolls towards the stumps. The striker now tries to protect his or her wicket in trying to protect the wicket. So the law allows the striker to protect his wicket. So in trying to protect the wicket, the striker actually hits the wicket with the bat and bails on the ground. Wicket is down. In that case, striker out, hit wicket. Earlier, I mentioned that for a striker to be given out hit wicket, it must happen after the bowler's entered his or her delivery stride. So what happens if the striker put the wicket down before the bowler enters the delivery stride? So let's say there's this back and across movement by the striker, but the bowler has, and now because of the back and across movement, the striker now puts the wicket down, but the bowler has not entered the delivery stride yet. The law tells us in that case, call and signal dead ball. So if it happens before, enters the delivery stride, call and signal dead ball. So even if the striker puts his or her wicket down, not out, because bowler has not entered the delivery stride yet. So we've covered how the striker can be dismissed hit wicket. We're now going to cover how the striker is not out hit wicket. Let's see what those instances are. The striker will be not out hit wicket if it occurs after the striker has completed any action while playing at the ball. So what this means is once the shot is completed and then the striker puts down the wicket, it will be not out hit wicket. So important thing here is once the stroke is completed. That's the important part. Stroke is completed. If then the striker puts the wicket down, not out. So in judging, when the striker puts the wicket down, so the thing that you need to take into account is the shot completed or not? That's the question that you need to ask yourself. If your answer to that question is yes, shot is done, then the striker put the wicket down, not out hit wicket. If your answer to the question was no, the striker put the wicket down while still playing the shot. If that is your answer is yes, the wicket was put down while still playing at the shot, then yes, out hit wicket. Striker shall also be not out hit wicket if it happens while running other than setting off immediately for the first run. So let's say example, the striker hits the ball into the covers or hits it down to the third man boundary. They batters run 1, they run 2, and on the third run, the striker then, let's say, trying to dive to make his or her ground in diving with the bat, then knocks off the bails. I promise you, and it happened to me in my playing days, players will appeal because they don't know the law. They will appeal and they will say, yeah, Umpy, how's that? Out, hit wicket. Law tell us that shall be not out, hit wicket. Law tell us that in the act of running, unless it's that first run. Only then. Any other runs, if the wicket is then put down, not out, hit wicket. Striker shall be not out, hit wicket if it occurs while the striker is trying to avoid being run out or stumped. Example of this, striker tries steps out, spinner bowling, steps out, misses the ball. The striker now tries to get back behind the popping crease. So in trying to get back for behind the popping crease, not to be stumped by the wicketkeeper. In that attempt, the striker's bat now makes contact with the wickets. The law tells us that shall be not out, hit wicket. Striker shall also be not out, hit wicket if it occurs when the striker is trying to avoid a throw at any time. Also, the striker shall be not out, hit wicket if the bowler, after entering the delivery stride, does not deliver the ball. And lastly, the striker shall be not out, hit wicket if the delivery is a no ball. We're now going to look at a video that happened in a ODI a year ago. I'm only going to play half the video. I'm not going to play it completely. I will play it twice. I want you to make your decision as the umpire, whether it's out or not out, hit wicket, and you give your reasons. I want you to put your answers in the chat box. We can then look at it when we in our Q&A session. So I'll play the video only half. I'll play it once. I'll play it again, only half of it. Apply what I've just said to you when you're out, hit wicket, and when you're not out, hit wicket. Apply what I've just said to you. Apply the law. Give your answer. Give me your reason, and we can look at put it in the chat box, and we can then discuss it in our Q&A session.
Not bowled. Yeah, that's what can happen when you're set and you think the pitch is behaving very nicely. End of the over. Now what has happened here? Well, has he somehow touched the stumps? What's going on here? One of the
Brendan Taylor, I think, after he's played the shot, has knocked the bails off with his bat. Now, I didn't see what was happening. I just heard it in my ear. And Shakib Al Hassan has gone and appealed to Murray Erasmus. So discussion going on between those two men. Be interesting to see what happened here, actually.
Well, he's just checking with the fielders. And we're not too sure, but the bails were off. One of the bail. Let's see what has happened. He's fine. It's a legal delivery. It'll be a big blow if Brendan Taylor departs in that fashion. Nothing. What does he do? Oops, that's gone. That's gone.
I'm going to stop the video there. As an umpire, you only get one look at it. You need to make your decision. Apply the law that we've just covered. Put it in the chat box. Out or not out. with your reason why you say out or why you say not out. We will discuss it later on. The last law I'm covering for this evening before I hand over to Tom. Leg before. In any given game, at any level, the most appeals that you get on in a match is for leg before wicket. That's why it's important that you do understand exactly how to apply this. Let's look at what the law tells us about leg before wicket.
Leg before wicket. LBW. LBW is a little like the offside rule in football. Many people claim to know it, but how many people really do? Our handy checklist means that whether you find yourself umpiring an international test match or the kids on the beach, your reputation for fairness will remain intact. There are 5 basic criteria to consider. The batsman is out, leg before wicket, if 1. The bowler bowls a ball that isn't a no ball, unlike this poor fellow. 2. The ball, if it is not intercepted on the full, pitches in line between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the batsman's wicket. It cannot be out if the ball pitches outside the line of the leg stump. 3, the ball hits the batsman either full pitch or after pitching and before he hits it with his bat. 4. This is where it gets a bit more complicated. If the batsman was making a genuine attempt to play the ball, the point of impact must be between wicket and wicket for LBW to be an option. However, if the batsman has made no genuine attempt to play the ball, the contact must either be between wicket and wicket or outside the line of the off stump. 5. This is the crucial part. But for the interception by the batsman, the ball would have gone on to hit the stumps and dislodge the bails. Any questions? Just refer to Law 36 in the Blue Book.
So let's see those points that we need to consider when there is an LBW appeal. Okay, point number 1, ball should not be a no ball. Next point, it needs to pitch in line between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the wicket. So when it pitches, either it needs to pitch in line or on the offside. So which means if the ball pitches on the leg side, it then cannot be given on LBW. The ball should not have touched the bat of the batter first. So if it first touches the bat, then goes against the pad, not to be given out LBW. If it's the other way around, then you can consider it. But there's other points that we need to consider, which we will go through in the next few bullet points. But the point that the third bullet point is trying to tell us is that if it's bat first, cannot be given out LBW. If it's pad first and then it strikes the bat, then you can consider it. If all the other points also needs to be yes. Striker intercepts the ball with any part of his or her person. Yes, the law is LBW, leg before wicket, but it can go against any part of the person, any part of the striker, whether it's the arm, the tummy, the shoulder, the head, any part, then you can consider the LBW appeal. The point of impact needs to be between wicket and wicket. So important, impact must be between wicket and wicket. But there is one exception. The only time where you can consider the impact not between wicket, be between wicket and wicket is if the striker has not made a genuine attempt to play the ball with his or her bat. So, importantly in this point, impact must be between wicket and wicket, unless the striker did not attempt to play at the ball. If that is the case, and then the ball strikes the batter outside the line of off stump, you can then consider the LBW appeal. We will go through examples in the next few slides that will illustrate these points clearly. And the last and most, I wouldn't say most important point when it comes to LBW, all these points are important, but last is a very important point. In your opinion, the ball would have gone on to hit the wicket. So when there's an LBW appeal, these are the 6 points that you need to consider. When you start umpiring and with experience, if there's an appeal, these 6 points goes through your brain in milliseconds. So appeal, you go through these points. It goes quickly because with experience you develop to go through these points quickly, and then you need to make to answer the appeal, whether out or not out. Let's look at a few examples to see what the law means. A right-handed batter. Where does this ball pitch? So let's assume there's going to be quite a few pictures that we're going to look at. Let's assume that they're all not a no ball. So now you go through the points. So the first thing that you need to look at is pitching. Where does it pitch? What is the question that you need to ask yourself when it comes to pitching? Does it pitch in line or does it pitch on the offside? That's the first question. In this instance, where does this ball pitch? Does it pitch in line or does it pitch on the offside? No, it does not. It actually pitches on the leg side or outside leg. In this case, we've discovered it. The law clearly tells us once the ball has pitched outside leg, it can never be given out LBW. First, what's the first point that we need to consider? Pitch. Where did it pitch? Did it pitch in line or pitch on the offside? Yes, it pitched in line. What's the next point to consider? Impact. Was the impact between wicket and wicket? Yes, impact was between wicket and wicket. Next point to consider, and last point, would it have gone on to hit the stumps? If the answer to that question is yes, give the batter out LBW. If the answer to those questions, the last question is no, not out LBW. So in this instance, yes, this batter is a candidate. First question, where did it pitch? Did it pitch in line or did it pitch on the offside? Yes, it pitched on the offside. Next question, where's the impact? Is the impact between wicket and wicket? In this instance, no, the impact is not between wicket and wicket, and the batter is playing a shot. That's why this will be not out LBW, impact outside off or impact outside the line. First question, where did it pitch? Did it pitch between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the wicket? Yes, it pitched on the offside of the wicket. Next question, where was the impact? Was the impact between wicket and wicket? No, the impact was not between wicket and wicket. But remember, I said earlier, there is a but where you can consider even if the impact is outside off, if the striker did not play a shot. So in this instance, no shot played by the striker. So now you can consider the LBW even though the impact is outside off. So we're happy, even though the impact is outside off, but we can consider it because no shot played by the striker. What is the last point that you need to ask yourself? Would this ball gone on to hit the stumps? If your answer to that question is yes, give the strikeout LBW. If the answer to that question is no, not out LBW. If you just looking at this, so yes, this batter is a candidate, but just looking at this, where it pitches, the trajectory of the ball, where it hit, I don't think this ball came back enough to hit the stumps. I think this ball is missing off stump. Again, that is my opinion. Looking at this picture, I don't think the ball came back enough to hit the stumps. I think this ball is missing off stump. But that's my opinion. LBW is an opinion law. Maybe for some of you looking at this picture, you would say, yes, I think it will go on to hit the stumps. That is your opinion. First question, where did it pitch? Did it pitch between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the wicket? Yes, it pitched between wicket and wicket. Where was the impact? Was the impact between wicket and wicket? Yes, the impact was between wicket and wicket. What's the last question that you need to ask yourself? Would it gone on to hit the stumps? If your answer to that question is yes, give the batter out LBW. If the answer to the question is no, not out LBW. First question, where did it pitch? Did it pitch between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the wicket? Yes, it did pitch between wicket and wicket. Where's the impact? Was the impact between wicket and wicket? Yes, impact was between wicket and wicket. Last question, would this ball have gone on to hit the stumps? If your answer to that question is yes, give the strikeout LBW. If the answer to the question is no, not out LBW. So in this picture, in my opinion, looking at where the ball pitched, and I think this is a left arm bowler bowling over the wicket. So yes, it pitched on. It hit the striker in line. But if you look at the stride forward that the striker got, and if you look at the trajectory of the ball, and this ball is going across the striker, I think, in my opinion, I would give this not out LBW, and my reason would be missing off stump. Did the ball pitch between wicket and wicket or on the offside of the wicket? Yes, it pitched on the offside of the wicket. Was the impact between wicket and wicket? Yes, the impact was between wicket and wicket. What is the last question that you need to ask yourself? Would it have gone on to hit the stumps? So if your answer to that question is yes, give the strikeout LBW. If no, not out LBW. Again, if you look at this, where it pitched, I think this is a spinner bowling, pitch outside off, turning in, batter, fairly good stride, on the front foot. I think this ball is missing leg stump. First question, where did it pitch? Did it pitch between wicket and wicket or on the offside? Yes, on the offside. Was the impact between wicket and wicket? Yes, impact is between wicket and wicket. Last question, would it have gone on to hit the stumps? I don't think so. If you look at where it hits, fairly high and on top of the pad, I think this is going over the stumps. Tom, that is my loss for the evening. Thank you so much. I'm handing over to you.
Thanks very much, Abdullah, and good evening to all the candidates. We are flying through the modes of dismissals. The next one in the law book is obstructing the field. Let me just put the full screen on and we'll watch a video to start.
Obstructing the field. A batsman is out obstructing the field if he or she willfully attempts to obstruct or distract the fielding side by word or action. Like this, for example. Thank you, Tommy. In particular, it is considered to be obstruction if, while the ball is in play and after the striker has played the ball, Either batsman willfully strikes the ball with a hand not holding the bat, or any other part of his or her person, or with the bat. The exception to this is when the batsman is attempting to defend his or her wicket. The batsman may do this with the bat or any part of his or her person, except with a hand not holding the bat. If the batsman uses such a hand, he or she will be out obstructing the field. The handle the ball law no longer exists, with such incidents now covered by obstructing the field instead. The obstruction has to be willful. Accidental obstruction or obstruction caused by trying to avoid injury does not count, and the decision on that is down to the umpire. It's worth noting that if a catch is obstructed, it is the striker who is out, even if it was the non-striker who caused the obstruction. Mind you, it's not always an easy decision. Here, the batsman deliberately crosses out of the legal running area in order to attempt to obstruct the throw. There is no other reason why the batsman should be running across the pitch. What looked an accident was, in fact, an illegal incident. To avoid any possible confusion, read Law 37 in black and white in the Blue Book.
Before I play this next video, I realized that the previous video was buffering. I've got quite a few items open on my laptop. I'm just going to close those first. Bear with me while I do that, and I'm going to unshare in the meantime. Please give me 10 to 15 seconds, and I will continue with the sharing. Hopefully this sharing will be a lot better. Right, so let's see an actual example of obstructing the field. It was mentioned in the animation video, and I'll talk through it after we've watched the South Africa against England in a T20 international many years ago. I think it was 2017. Let's have a look what happened here.
Oh, danger, danger. Now then, what have they done here? Dead ball, called dead ball. They've fired up South Africa. Now he's called dead ball to sort out the issue. Well, he's gone across to the other side of the pitch, and that'll be something umpires will take into consideration. He's on one side, gets over the other side. He's not looking at the ball strikes him. Would he have got in?
He was looking at the ball initially, though, wasn't he? He wants the single. Livingston calls him back. At this point, Roy gets across to the other side, and he is watching the ball. But whether you can say he's got himself deliberately between the ball and the stumps, I'm not sure. Come on, umpire Lloyd.
And it's Jason Roy.
Well, it's Jason Roy who's disappointed, and the crowd as well. A ring of boos goes around the ground, but I'm sure the third umpire has given him out because Roy has crossed paths. He's got over to the other side of the pitch, got himself between ball and stumps, and in the third umpire's opinion, he's done that deliberately. So Roy's innings, a very good innings, comes to an end. 67 from 45, 133 for 3.
Very well described there by Michael Atherton. It was a deliberate run between the ball and the stumps, between the thrower and the stumps by Jason Roy. He was on one side of the pitch, and seeing that the throw was coming from the other side of the pitch, he went across the pitch, which itself is a law that is in 41, law 41, that has been contravened. But then, of course, he is obstructing the field from running him out, and the umpires correctly gave him out, obstructing the field. If he had stayed in his particular lane and ran straight back, and the ball had been thrown and hit him in that line that he was running originally, he would not have been given out obstructing the field. So now the question is, are there any runs scored when a batter is given out obstructing the field? Let's see what the law says. When either batter is dismissed obstructing the field, unless the obstruction or distraction prevents the striker from being out-caught, any runs completed by the batters before the offence shall be scored, together with any one-run penalty for no ball or wide, or any other award of 5 penalty runs to either side. So if, for example, the batters were running for 2, and after having completed their first run, and then on the second run, Jason Roy changed his running lane and got in the way of a throw and was given out obstructing the field. Because they had completed that first run before the obstruction happened, then 1 run would be scored by England in that particular incident. If the obstruction or distraction prevents the striker from being out-caught, Abdullah has already mentioned that if a striker is out-caught, then no runs will accrue to the batting side, even if they had crossed for 1 or 2 runs while the ball was in the air. So similarly, any runs completed by the batters shall not be scored except for any penalties awarded to either side, which shall stand. Quite importantly, the bowler does not get credit for this mode of dismissal. Next law we move on to is run out, law 38. How is a batter out run out? Either batter is out run out, except we shall go through in the next slide, law 38.2. If at any time while the ball is in play, he or she is out of his or her ground, and his or her wicket is fairly put down by the action of a fielder, even though a no ball has been called and whether or not a run is being attempted. So moral of the story here is both batters, while the ball is in play, need to stay in their crease. When is a batter not out run out? A batter is not out run out in the following circumstances. If he or she has been within his or her ground and has subsequently left it to avoid injury when the wicket is put down. Imagine batters run for a single and they complete the single with both batters grounding their bats beyond the opposite popping crease, and then a throw comes in, and to prevent from being hit by the throw, the batter lifts his or her batter out from the popping crease, from beyond the popping crease, and then the ball hits the stumps. So law protects that batter in that if he or she was avoiding injury, then they will not be out run out. A batter will not be out run out if the ball has not subsequently touched a fielder after the bowler has entered the delivery stride before the wicket is put down. It happens quite often when a bowler bowls a straight delivery and the striker hits the ball straight back down the ground and the bowler is unable to get a hand on it and the ball rushes through to the non-striker's stumps. The non-striker backing up outside of his or her crease has his or her stumps broken by the ball. So law tells us here that if there is no touch from the bowler or any other fielder for that matter before the non-striker's stumps are broken, then the non-striker is protected from being run out, even though he or she is out of his or her crease. The striker is also not out run out when he or she is stumped, and we will get to stumped in the next law. If no ball has been called and he or she is out of his or her ground but not attempting a run, the striker will not be out run out if the wicket is put down. Why? Because you will learn in the next law that a striker cannot be out stumped off a no ball. And here the law protects the striker from being run out if they are double stepping towards the ball, trying to play a shot, miss the shot, and then the wicket keeper removes the bails. But because they are not attempting a run and the delivery was a no ball, that striker will be not out stumped because it's a no ball, and also not out run out because it's a no ball and he or she was not attempting a run. If the wicket is fairly put down by the wicket keeper without the intervention of another fielder. So this is the definition of a stumping. And again, if the ball is a no ball, a striker cannot be out stumped, nor can he or she be out run out if they are not attempting a run. Now we move on to the contentious issue of a non-striker leaving his or her ground early and the bowler running him or her out. This mode of dismissal is often referred to as the man-cad, named after the gentleman who first did it, I think, in the 1960s. Let's read through the law and then we'll watch a video. If the non-striker is out of his or her ground at any time from the moment the ball comes into play until the instant when the bowler would normally have been expected to release the ball, and that's an important point in this law, the non-striker is liable to be run out. In these circumstances, the non-striker will be out run out if he or she is out of his or her ground when his or her wicket is broken by the bowler throwing the ball at the wicket or by the bowler's hand holding the ball, whether or not the ball is subsequently delivered. Let's watch a video that explains this a little better.
Running out the non-striker. Running out the non-striker occurs when a bowler runs out a batsman who has strayed too early out of the popping crease by removing the bails. It is a much debated form of dismissal, with some suggesting that a warning should be given. However, leaving his or her ground early is an attempt by the non-striker to gain an unfair advantage, and it puts a batsman at risk of getting out. The law doesn't require the bowler to give a warning, and he or she is entitled to run out the non-striker until the moment when he or she would normally have been expected to release the ball, in which case it's perfectly fair for the bowler to run the non-striker out. For more detail on this perfectly legal practice, see Law 4116 in the MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
So you'll notice there that this law used to sit in Law 41.16, which is under unfair play. However, from the 1st of October 2022, the law was moved to run out because it is effectively a run out of the non-striker at the bowler's end. And it is now in the latest version of the law book, which I sent you a PDF of in the course material before the lectures started. This law sits as part of the run-out law in 38.3.1. And the reason that the lawmakers did this is to try and take away the stigma of this mode of dismissal. Previously, we had thought that the bowler was being unfair or sneaky in running out the non-striker in this manner. However, as the narrator mentioned in that previous video, it could be also argued that the non-striker is gaining an unfair advantage by leaving his or her crease before the point of release by the bowler. Okay, so that is why the bowler is allowed to run out the non-striker from the point that the bowler starts his or her run-up until when the bowler would be expected to deliver the ball. So now we're going to watch two more videos. One of a perfect execution of what is called the mancad, and the next video will be an incorrect execution of running out of the non-striker. We start with England against India at Lord's Cricket Ground last year. Let's see what happened.
No. I'm not so sure. I know it's in the laws of the game.
I'm ready with my decision for the big screen.
Here we see that Dipti Sharma had not reached the point where she would be expected to release the ball for delivery. And so the unfortunate non-striker was correctly given out because she was out of her crease before the ball was delivered. As an umpire, what should you do if you see a non-striker leaving their crease early? I like to be proactive in my umpiring. A lot of the time, 99% of the time, when non-strikers are run out at the bowler's end, it's not because they were trying to unfairly gain ground. It's simply because they were not watching the ball out of the bowler's hand and they left the crease a fraction early. Typically, a bowler will not run out a non-striker the very first time that he or she sees that the non-striker is out of their crease early. So you as an umpire, if you see that a batter is leaving his or her ground at the non-striker's end early, give them a small whisper in their ear to tell them, look, you are not watching the bowler, and so you are liable to be run out at the non-striker's end because you are leaving the crease too early. and it is up to the batter to heed your warning or not. And also remind the batter that the bowler does not have to give a warning before appealing for a run out. And lastly, what you should do is you should, after the appeal, walk to your partner at square leg, and between the two of you, just determine whether or not the bowler had reached the point of delivery before he or she then dislodged the bails on the non-striker's end. If the bowler had gone past or reached the point of expected delivery, then you will give the striker not out and explain why you're giving not out or why you have given out. Also, the time that you and your partner are getting together is a good time for the fielding captain to perhaps withdraw the appeal, because it is still a contentious mode of dismissal. Captains at international level have told the International Cricket Council that they do not want to be asked by on-field umpires if they want to withdraw their appeal or not. As soon as there's an appeal, whether it's from a fielder or from the fielding captain, that appeal will stand at international level. However, at club cricket, I would say usually the captain of a fielding side is at mid-on or mid-off, sometimes in the slips. As you're walking towards your partner, you can ask the fielding captain if he or she wants to go through with the appeal or to withdraw the appeal. And if, of course, they choose to go through with the appeal, then you need to make your decision, out or not out. Let's have a look at the next video, which shows Adam Zampa not knowing the law.
Third umpire director, got a review for run out. We want to check whether the bowler's arm has gone past the vertical. That's satisfied the law for run out at the bowler's end.
Yep, this is critical, because that's actually correct. Yep. So once the back foot is where most people
roll it through, roll it through, roll it through, roll it through, roll it through further. Now his arm's gone past the vertical, therefore not out. Repeat, decision for the big screen will be not out.
Tell you what, that's Sean Craig in the hot seat, and that's a very interesting decision. The right call from the umpire. Yep. Well,
Right, so there you go. Pretty simple. Even easier when you've got the benefit of a TV umpire to have a look at it for you as to whether the bowler has gone through the vertical, as mentioned there by the TV umpire, or gone past the point of the expected release by the bowler. Then even though the non-striker was well out of his crease, the decision there is not out. Law 39 is stumped. Let's watch another video.
Stumped. All batsmen fear being stumped, and all wicket-keepers dream of stumping batsmen. So let's be clear about the law. The only player who can stump a batsman is this fellow, the wicket-keeper. A stumping can take place provided that the ball is not a no ball. You can be stumped off a wide, however. Here, for example, the batsman has moved out of his or her ground to play the ball, but has missed it and has not attempted a run. The wicket is fairly put down by the wicket-keeper without the intervention of another fielder. When all these conditions are met, the batsman will find that he or she has indeed been stumped. It's also okay for the ball to rebound onto the stumps off any part of the wicket-keeper, including his or her protective equipment or helmet. If it is a no ball, the batsman will not be out-stumped and is also protected from being run out as long as he or she is not attempting a run. Don't be stumped about stumping. Get a copy of the Blue Book and study Law 39.
Pretty straightforward, the stumping law. Just remember that a batter cannot be stumped off a no ball. And in limited overs playing conditions, when you have a free hit, a batter also cannot be stumped off that free hit. Please, ladies and gentlemen, I've seen a umpire give a batter out stumped off a free hit. According to the playing conditions of most limited overs competitions, a batter cannot be out stumped off a free hit. Last law that I'm going to go through is Law 40, timeout. And the reason that we're not going through Law 41 and Law 42 is that they are not examined in the Cricket South Africa Level 1 umpiring exam that you're going to write. And also Law 41, which is unfair play, and Law 42, which is player conduct. They are very different in playing conditions all over the world versus the law. So rather than teaching you law that you would hardly ever apply, you will go through the playing conditions for your specific tournament. And if you are going to join Western Province Cricket Umpires Association, we will send you those playing conditions for you to be ready for your first match. And you can ask us any questions on the playing conditions that are based on laws 41 and 42. Law 42 is mainly covered by a code of conduct that each competition or association abide by. So last law for the evening before I introduce our guest lecturer is Law 40. Timed out. When and how is a batter timed out? And text is in green, so you know it will be examined in the Cricket South Africa Level 1 exam. After the fall of a wicket or the retirement of a batter, the incoming batter must, unless time has been called, be ready to receive the ball or for the other batter to receive the next ball within 3 minutes of the dismissal or retirement. If this requirement is not met, the incoming batter will be timed out. I'm just going to give you the playing conditions for 50 over cricket. The timed out law is 2 minutes in 50 overs playing conditions, and in T20 playing conditions across the world, as far as I know, the batter has got 90 seconds after the fall of a wicket to get to the crease. And that is why you find in T20 cricket, you have batting sides sitting in the dugout on the side of the field rather than upstairs in their change room. Does the bowler get credit for a batter being timed out? No, the bowler does not get credit for a batter being timed out. Just a bit of umpiring technique is if you do have a appeal for timed out, and it has happened to me once that a batter took longer than 3 minutes in a 2-day match where the playing conditions was for batters to be ready for the next delivery after the fall of a wicket within 3 minutes. Batter took longer than 3 minutes to get to the crease, and there was an appeal. According to the letter of the law, I should have given that batter out. However, I inquired from the batter as to why he took more than 3 minutes to get to the crease, and he explained to me that his side is a poor side in terms of their equipment resources. So the 11 batters were sharing 3 sets of pads, and the previous wicket was the second wicket to fall in quick succession. So he did not have enough time to put the pads on of an outgoing batter and be able to be ready and at the crease within 3 minutes. So based on that particular piece of information, myself and my partner consulted, and we decided to give the batter not out, timed out, even though he had taken longer than 3 minutes to be ready at the crease. We explained this reason to the fielding captain, and the fielding captain was satisfied and did not cause a fuss. So, ladies and gentlemen, please remember that umpiring is more than just applying the letter of the law. You need to apply what we mention often as Law 43, common sense, and always be a facilitator of the game, not a policeman of the laws. So, before I introduce our guest lecturer, while I've still got the screen, I'm going to play the hit wicket that Abdullah asked us to go through and decide on. I'm going to play it without its volume, and hopefully the pictures are, in fact, I will play it with the volume, no problem. And we will go through it after Mark's presentation of the particular match preparation that we've got. But Abdullah, I thought I'll play it again because we have, I counted 11 answers. 6 of them were not out and 5 of them were out. So we've got a hung jury. So I think some of the guys didn't see it properly. It was buffering on my side. I don't know if it was buffering for everybody else. So let's have a look. And maybe you want to rethink your answer. We will discuss it after Mark's presentation. But for now, let's have one more view of it. Let me just share my screen again.
Ball. That's what can happen when you're set and you think the pitch is behaving very nicely. End of the over. Now, what has happened here? Well, has he somehow touched stumps? What's going on here?
One of the Brendan Taylor, I think, after he's played the shot, has knocked the bails off with his bat. I didn't see what was happening. I just heard it in my ear. And
Yeah, there was a little bit of buffering there again, just before he's bat remove the bells. So let's go through it again.
Departs in that fashion. Nothing. Nothing. What does he do? Oops, that's gone. That's gone. He cannot believe his luck. I thought it's going to be his lucky day today.
Okay, we shall get TV umpires Abdullah Steenkamp's decision after the next presentation. So let me introduce you to Mark Young. He is an umpire at KwaZulu-Natal Inland Umpires Association, which is based in Pietermaritzburg. Remember, we showed a video of a boundary being hit by a South Africa under-19 player, which carried over the boundary but hit the top of a tree that is inside of the boundary, and hence, according to the custom at Pietermaritzburg Oval, that was a boundary 4 and not a boundary 6. So Mark has got about 9 years of umpiring experience in Gauteng, in KwaZulu-Natal, both in Durban and Pietermaritzburg. He is a level 3 umpire who stands in the Premier Division of KwaZulu-Natal Inland, as well as doing pulse matches, which are your provincial B-sides. And he's going through Cricket South Africa's tournament stages at the moment, and also wants to become an accredited Cricket South Africa trainer. So Mark, please share your screen with your match preparation presentation. The presentation is Western Province Cricket Umpires Association's presentation. However, Mark, if you want to give us any input from KwaZulu-Natal Inland, if you guys do things differently, please feel free to do so, because different conditions sometimes need different preparation. Thanks for joining us, Mark. The floor is yours.
Thank you for that introduction, Tom. If you could just let me know if you can see me sharing my screen and you can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear, and I can see the first page of the presentation.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to present in your lecture, and welcome to all the candidates. Yeah, I remember writing my level 1, or back then it was still a D grade certificate many years ago. And yeah, it's a great thing to be able to stand on that field and be a part of such a beautiful game, and just interact with the players. But let's look at match preparation. So you've written your exam, you've passed, you've joined an association, and now you've been allocated to go stand at a particular game, be it on a Saturday or Sunday. What should you be doing to prepare for that game? So we're going to go through 3 things. It's the dress code, the equipment that you should be carrying in your bag, as well as what you do when you get to the ground in your pre-match duties. So in terms of dress code, you're going to be wearing your sponsored hat or cap, depending on what your association has in terms of sponsored clothing. You might only have a sponsored shirt, but that all depends on different factors. But usually if you have a sponsored hat and a sponsored shirt, you'll be wearing those for those particular games. Most of the cricket that is played in South Africa at club level is red ball cricket. So you are going to be usually wearing a white shirt with a white hat. And yes, that headband, as it says, it needs to be clean. I'm sure if any of you have played for any period of time, you notice that headband likes to go nice and yellow through sweat, whatever. We want to try appear as professional as possible. And so we want to maintain that as clean an attire as possible. Then the second thing, a clean and ironed sponsored shirt. Again,
to match with the hat. If your shirt is sponsored by any particular company, or whatever the case might be that your association has managed to get for themselves, then you will wear that shirt. And a white vest. The reason being, the shirts tend to be very thin material, because obviously you're going to be standing out in the sun all day. We don't want it to be a heavy material that's going to cause you to perspire more than necessary. So it can be a thin material. And if it is a particularly hot day, that perspiration can sometimes make that material a bit transparent or translucent. So again, in just appearing professional, you wear that white vest so that the white clothing is on show, not necessarily anything underneath the clothing. Or perhaps you have a particular tattoo that would show through white clothing. We don't want that being displayed if possible. The next bit is comfortable fitting black pants. Again, you are going to be standing for the majority of the day, and you're going to be moving around quite a bit. It's not just in moving when there's a run out opportunity. Sometimes in different field technique, you'll have what we call as your switch up and your switch down. You might take 1 or 2 steps out of your position, and all this movement around and running for run out, or going from square leg to square leg if there's a left-right hand combination. You want those pants to be comfortable. You don't want them too tight, because then it will be very uncomfortable, especially if you have a long day ahead. Your shoes, predominantly white running shoes. Dress shoes are going to be very uncomfortable for you. But don't make the mistake that I made and go buy a pair of white shoes and only wear them when you umpire, because as we all know, a brand new pair of shoes can be very uncomfortable the first few times that you wear them. So I would suggest, if you are going to go buy a pair of dedicated shoes, which is what I have done, is I have a dedicated pair of shoes that I use for umpiring only. Even when you go and buy them, maybe for a week or so, wear them around the house or whatever, just so that you wear them in a little bit, so that they're not brand new. They're not going to give you blisters or make your feet uncomfortable when you stand in those shoes. And of course, white socks as well. So you're usually going to be wearing, as you can see in the picture there, those umpires will be standing at a test match with white shirt, black pants. They'll have predominantly white shoes. Obviously, if you're buying a pair of Nikes and it's got the little tick, or New Balance and it's got the N, that's okay. It's very difficult to find shoes that are pure white, but that's why we say predominantly white shoes. The next thing you want to wear is a modest watch. Now, the reason we say a modest watch is obviously it needs to keep time well. It mustn't be a cheap watch that it's going to lose time just by you moving around or whatever. But it mustn't be too expensive, because what happens if the ball gets hit straight back at you while you're at the bowler's end and you can't get out the way in time, and the ball hits your watch? If you're wearing a nice expensive Rolex, that watch is going to be broken. So a modest watch that can keep time well, but if it does get damaged, somehow you are not out of pocket in a huge way, that it can easily be replaced or repaired. Obviously, you want to wear a belt just to keep your pants up, number one. But number two, you'll see different umpires. Some will have like a little pouch that they'll attach to their belt for some of the equipment that you'll see just now. Myself, I just have a clip that I put on my belt for holding the caps, and I put everything else in my pockets. But you'll find something that works for you. And that's the main key, is to find something that works for you when we look at as to how you hold your equipment. So your on-field equipment, there's some must-haves and some optional extras. A clicker is your number one thing that you must have, and we'll see some images of what these look like on the next slide. I would actually say carry 2 clickers. So you have your main one and you have a spare. Again, maybe the ball gets hit back, you manage to get out the way, but you drop your clicker and the bowler steps on it and it breaks or whatever. You need to have a spare. Or if for some reason your colleague doesn't have one, or their bag of equipment has been stolen out their car or whatever, then you can offer your spare to your colleague. And this helps you keep track of balls. I've seen umpires who like to use stones or they like to use coins. The reason this is not ideal is because if you need to remake the wicket, then you either need to put those stones into your pocket and remake it, or you need to hold them, but you could drop them. You could transfer 2 coins or 2 stones instead of 1. The clicker it makes quite a pronounced clicking sound when you click between balls and you click between overs. So a clicker is a must-have. Your bowling card, also very important. Your bowling card is your best friend. It allows you to write down the names of bowlers, obviously, in the name, and track the number of overs they've bowled. Obviously, if you're playing a multi-day game where bowlers can bowl as many overs as they like, it's not as important to track the number of overs they've bowled, but it is still important to track the name of the bowler if, say, for example, he's going to go off the field for an injury or a bathroom break or whatever, and you need to keep track of the time. So you'll usually find on the back of your bowling cards, there'll be quite a few lines where you can actually write down different things that have happened, a bowler that's gone off, a bowler that's gone on, or fielder that's gone off and gone on. And you can keep track of time and those type of things. So write down everything that you think is important, because you don't want a captain to come to you later in the day and ask you a question and you haven't got a reference to show them, okay, this is what happened. But obviously, if you're playing a limited format of cricket where the bowlers can only bowl, say, 10 overs in a 50 over or 4 overs in a T20, you need to track the number of overs that a bowler has bowled in that regard. Obviously, a pen. I would say carry a spare as well. I always have 2 pens in my pocket. Again, it's so that if I happen to drop one, or one for whatever reason stops writing, again, I can quickly pull out my spare and I'm not taking up time writing on my card. Spare bails, and if possible, heavy bails. So again, in my bag personally, I probably have 8 or 9 different bails. And then I actually have a set of heavy bails that I carry on the field with me as well. That's just if the wind is blowing particularly strong. Ideally, we don't want to have to remove the bails from both ends if we can avoid it. So we switch to heavy bails. If the wind is still too strong, then obviously you dispense with bails. But I'm sure many of you have seen as well, a quick bowler just happens to nick the top of the stumps, and your colleague comes to remake the wicket, and you find that the bail has split in 2, or one of the spigots on the end has broken. So in that regard, it's nice to just switch out the bail for one of yours. And obviously at the end of the game, just make sure you get it back, or if you're generous enough, you can let the club have it and say, well, yeah, yours broke, there's one for you. So spare bails are important. Also, a pair of scissors or nail clippers. The reason for this is, again, you'll notice sometimes when a ball starts to wear, sometimes the seam, the string of the seam will start to stand up. And sometimes a very skilled bowler or spin bowler can actually use that to their advantage. So you want to clip that. What I use personally is a little Swiss Army knife, which has a pair of scissors in it. So I don't have to carry an actual pair of scissors. I do have a small pair of scissors. And nail clippers are there. Sometimes the fielder, in taking a catch, it might hit their finger or whatever the case might be, and maybe chip their nail and they just want to trim it. You have that there. Or again, you can use that to get rid of the string that's sticking up on the seam. Some optional extras is a spike key. That's what the players use to tighten the spikes into their boots. Sometimes those will come loose, and it's nice just to, if a player asks, sorry, do you have a key that I can use? Yes, and they'll go down to third man when they're not bowling, and they'll tighten it up, and then when they come back to bowl the next over, they give you the key back. It's just nice that they don't now need to go off the field to do that, or they maybe slowing down the game because they run up and they feel, oh, their grip's not right, and now they need to change boots, whatever the case might be. So all of this is facilitating keeping the game flowing. A ball gauge, I have found that a ball gauge is very tricky to get hold of. I don't have one. I'd love to have one. I have a bat gauge, but I don't have a ball gauge. But again, this is just to make sure that the ball stays in shape. Sometimes when you look at a ball, you might think, is it in shape? Is it out of shape? A ball gauge will help you see that quite easily. You'll see in the picture on the next slide that there's actually 2 rings, and I'll explain what the 2 rings do. And some sweets. If you find that you need energy throughout the day, a little suckable sweet is nice to have, that you can just pop into your mouth when you stand in at square leg, just to give that little extra boost. And maybe even a player will come to you and you'll say, like, oh, I'm really, really struggling. Do you maybe have something that I can chew on or whatever? Then you can give that there. I even had many years ago, when I was doing my level 1, my trainer said, you get those antacid tablets to stop acid reflux. Maybe after the lunch interval, a fielder comes up to you and he's like, oh, that lunch was really good, but now I'm starting to feel it. And then you have a little antacid tablet that you can give to them, which again just helps them in not having to go off the field. They can keep playing the game. So let's have a look at what some of these things look like. So we can see here on the top left, this is a bowler's marker. The ones that you can buy from sporting goods stores will have this little spike on it, so when it goes into the ground, it's not going to move. And it's quite a sturdy piece of plastic, so the bowlers can run on it with their spikes. It's not going to break it or anything like that. So those are the ones that you can buy from sporting goods stores. Below it, this is the ball gauge. As you can see, there are 2 rings, and the rings will be different sizes. The first ring, if you place the ball, if you're looking at it side on, so that the seam basically runs around the circumference, it should sit very neatly in the first ring. And that will let you see if the ball is out of shape or not. And then the next ring, which is slightly bigger, the ball should pass completely through the ring. So again, if it's out of shape, it might have difficulty going through the larger ring, and that will let you know whether or not your ball is out of shape and needs to be changed. If we come across to the top right, that is a clicker. On the top, it will count your overs, and the bottom one counts your balls. So it will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0. One thing I've been taught is this little lanyard that it comes with. The first thing I do when I get a new clicker is I take that lanyard off, because what tends to happen is you'll put it around your wrist, and then you tend to swing your clicker around very absent-mindedly. Sometimes you're not even aware that you're doing it, but it doesn't convey a very professional look. So we usually suggest take the lanyard off your clicker, and if you need to remake the wicket, you just put it in your pocket, remake the wicket, and you can take it straight back out your pocket. And again, because it's not stones or coins, it will reflect exactly what it was when you put it in your pocket. So you'll know how many balls have been bowled, how many overs have been bowled, and so on. And obviously below that is the spike key. You do get bigger ones, you get ones of different shapes, whatever, but they all perform the same function. And obviously in the middle, that is your bowling card. Now, different unions or associations that you join might have a slightly different layout of these, but this gives you a very general idea. It gives you the space for the bowlers, the overs that they've bowled, So what I like to do when I mark off a bowler's over is I don't just put a cross. If bowler number 1 bowls the first over, I put a 1 next to there. And then if bowler number 2 bowls the second over, I put a 2. And then when bowler number 1 bowls the third over, I put a 3. So I know which over they've bowled. So again, now if you have a player who's been injured and now they want to bring on a bowler to complete that injured player's over, you can actually check your card and see whether or not he's bowled the previous over or not. It's just a helpful tool there. Obviously, you'll fill in at the end of the innings the score, the number of overs, who won the toss. You mark off individual overs. With the fall of wickets, if there is a scoreboard and you can see what the score is, you can fill it in, and the time. So again, if you're going to encounter potential timed out appeals, it's good to have written down the time that the wicket fell, just so that you have that as a reference. You'll always write down the start time of the innings and the finish time of the innings and whatever drinks intervals you have. Again, if the overcard that you are given from the association or union that you joined doesn't look like this or doesn't have space for all those things, flip it over and you can write those things on the back. All very good information to have. Okay, now things that you're going to have in your bag that you're not necessarily going to carry out onto the field. Okay, you want to have a spare stand-in shirt. Say, for example, you've gone to lunch, you've had a very nice lunch, you've had a nice tasty hamburger, but you bit into it and the tomato sauce or whatever just fell down your shirt and now you've got a nice stain on your shirt. It's always nice to change into your shirt, a clean shirt when you're standing. Tape measures are very important. You can have a 5 and a 30 meter, and that's for measuring pitches, measuring creases. We'll get into the pre-match checklist that you'll do with your colleague later on. But I've had it, I think it was maybe 2-3 weeks ago on a Saturday. We arrived at the ground. We went out to have a look at the wicket, and as soon as we arrived at the wicket, we're like, no, this looks long. So we did a quick walk down to the other side and like, yes, no, let's go get our tape measure. We measured it and the pitch was an extra 1.2 meters too long. So we had to ask them to remark the pitch. So it's good to have those tools just so that you can check these things. If it's 1 or 2 centimeters out, you're not going to ask them to remark the pitch. You can notify the captains, notify the home club so that they know for future reference to fix it. But it's good to have those things. Obviously, your law book is in your bag. If after the game, again, one of the leagues I umpire in is a veterans league, so that's players who are over 40. So they maybe played when they were in school or maybe in university, and then they haven't played for a bit, and now they're playing maybe 10 years, 15 years after they've last played cricket. I had one where the ball bounced twice and the batter hit it, and I was at square leg and I called no ball. And the captain's like, no, but it's allowed to bounce twice. And I explained to him, no, it's only allowed to bounce once. And for the rest of the game, we called it the way it was. If it bounced twice, we no-balled it. And at the end of the game, I was able to take my law book to him and say, here's the law. And he accepted it on that. Obviously, your playing conditions for whatever tournament you're playing in, it's very good to have your playing conditions with you. Just if captains are not familiar with them, you can show them. If it's before the game in your pre-toss discussion, if there's something they're not sure about, you can quickly run off, show them, or after the game, just to show them that they're. You want to carry your team sheets, your captain's reports, and your violations reports. We'll see some pictures of what those look like. Spare balls. Here at Inland, it is the responsibility of the home team to have spare balls. But again, that would depend on what your playing conditions are for your specific region that you're in. Maybe it's the umpires who need to provide balls. Maybe it's the home team that need to provide balls. Maybe each team needs to provide balls. So spare balls that are compatible for the match. If they're two-piece, playing with a two-piece, it must be a two-piece. If it's a four-piece, it must be a four-piece. Sunscreen is your biggest friend. When I started umpiring, I was very young and naive, and I thought, oh, I don't need sunscreen. And I would come off the park at 5, 6 o'clock, and I would be beet red. And yeah, sunscreen is very, very important to have. Don't be afraid to share with your colleague, maybe even a fielder or two. Especially here in South Africa, the South African sun is very, very hot, and people can burn very quickly. So sunscreen is a must-have. And toilet paper. You might not know what the facilities at a particular ground are like. They might have bathrooms, but they might not have anything else. So toilet paper is very, very important to have there. Some optional extras are eye drops, some deodorant, some lip balm, and your own lunch. Again, if you have particular dietary requirements, perhaps you only eat halal or you only eat vegetarian, then it's important that if a club is providing lunch, they might not have catered for you, not out of spite, they might just not know. So then you have your own lunch to have at lunchtime, or it might be a case where lunch is not going to be provided, and it's important that you sustain yourself throughout the day. So you need to have something to eat, because if you are distracted by hunger, you are not going to be focusing on the game completely. So we want to do everything that we can to make sure that we are 100% focused on what's happening at the game. Okay, these are just some examples of what the different forms would look like. Again, these might vary depending on the association that you join. So the first one on the left is the team sheet. So you would write the league, the venue, the date, the two teams, and then the captain needs to fill out his players on the team sheet. And then remember, after the toss, this list cannot be changed unless it's with the consent of the opposing captain. And if a player is not on this list, say, for example, they only put 10 names down, and you'll confirm with him and say, Captain, you've only written 10. Yes, we only have 10. 2 of my guys are sick. They're not going to show up today. Okay, that's fine. But if they've only given you 10 and an hour later, someone rocks up next to the ground and wants to come on, you say, well, you didn't put his name on the list. Unfortunately, he can't be part of your team. He can't take the field. And it's also nice, once you get the team list, give them to the scorers, so that the scorers can also, when they write in their scorebook, the name and surname of the players. The one on the right is the captain's report on the umpires. These are very, very important for you to grow as an umpire, to get feedback from captains. Now, one bad game is not going to derail your career. You might find a captain in a very close game, maybe against the team that's their rival. It's a close game and they lose, and he feels that you gave 1 or 2 LB decisions that didn't favor them, and he gives you a bad score just because he's upset. Usually what will happen is, when your association receives these forms, if they do see here, it actually says if they've been marked below a C, they need to give reasons why. The association will follow up with the captain and find out what happened. Sometimes the captain will even say, oh, you know, it was just the heat of the moment. It was such a close game. The umpire wasn't that bad. Or if you are maybe making multiple errors with your LB decision, then your association can come alongside you and say, okay, let's work on your LB knowledge. Let's work on this thing and maybe get you to a B or an A, and grow in that. So these are very, very important forms of feedback from the captains, so that we can grow as umpires. This form is a violation report. So again, this will now come down to playing conditions as to what forms of misconduct have happened on the field, if players have shown dissent, if they've hit the stumps or argued with another player or whatever the case has happened. Usually your playing conditions will cover what to do with that, but that's also covered in later laws, in Law 42 most often, is player conduct. And so if a player has done something that is in serious breach of those laws and of the playing conditions, you will report him to your association, and they will usually have a disciplinary panel that will evaluate the merit of what happened and what action needs to be taken further. You don't need to worry about it unless they come to you and say, okay, we might have a hearing with this guy, and we just need you to be there just to tell us again in person what happened. But usually you sit down with your colleague and you write this out. One form that we have here at Inland is an umpire's pitch report, which unfortunately I don't have an image for, but what that allows us as umpires to do is we can then grade the condition of the pitch, we grade the condition of the ground, the attitude of the players and the captains. So as much as the players or the captains get to comment on us on their report form, we can report on them as well, and that all goes back to the association, so they get a very full picture of what happened on a particular day, if there is anything that is out of line or anything that needs to be questioned. Because again, sometimes teams might, on the day the game's over, they shake hands and everyone's happy, but then after the game, they may be sitting having a drink together and they think, oh yeah, you remember that decision, and now all of a sudden what you thought was a great game becomes an issue. All the documents have gone to your association office, and the association office and your more experienced umpires will handle all those things there. Okay, your pre-match duties. So you've packed your bag, you've ironed your clothes, and it's the day before the game. So the night before the match, go over your playing conditions. Sometimes it's very easy that if we have umpired the same competition or league over and over and over, we get complacent and we can sometimes forget some of the little intricacies. It's very good to go over the playing conditions just so that you're not caught out, because you will have players who will sometimes know the playing conditions better than you, because that you do get those cricketers who read everything. So you don't want to be caught out by a player. It's okay to say, look, I'm not sure, I'll check, but then when you must check and come back to the player. Don't say I'll check and then just never speak to the guy again. Very importantly, get 8 hours of sleep or more. You don't want to be tired when you walk onto that field. It's going to affect your decision making. If the players can see that you're tired, and maybe early on in the day you make a decision that's probably a 50-50 call but goes against them, they're going to say, oh, look, Umpy doesn't want to be here, Umpy wants to go back to bed, and they'll start riding you pretty hard. So you just want to make sure you're in your best physical condition, best mental condition when you walk onto that field. If it's your first time going to the ground, confirm directions. Okay. Another thing that we experience a lot here in Pietermaritzburg is we have the Comrades Marathon, we have the Amashowa cycle race, we have the City Marathon. So there's a lot of sporting activities that happen on our roads. And they usually end up happening for some obscure reason on a Sunday, which is the day that we have our Premier League cricket. So it's important to know what roads are going to be closed that you can't cross, what time those roads are going to be closed. So maybe you leave home half an hour early just to avoid some road closures. Just make sure that you know how to get to the ground and how to get to the ground in time. If it is going to become a problem and you think, you know what, I'm going to leave home as early as I can, but I still might run late, it's good to let your colleague know, maybe let your association know as well, just so that no one's asking questions. Oh, where is this guy? He's 10 minutes late, whatever the case might be. Obviously, iron your clothes, pack your bag. You want to do this before you go to bed. The reason being is if you oversleep, you don't want to be in a rush the next morning and you forget something and you arrive at the ground and lo and behold, you don't have half your equipment. It has happened to me once where I usually have my overcards, my pocket knife, my pens. I have a coin that I use for the toss. Something else that I carry is I carry some chalk, because you'll find that not all clubs are able to remark the creases during an interval. So as the game progresses, that line where the bowler's landing gets obscured. I just carry a bit of chalk so that I can just, because remember, only the back of the line matters. I just redraw the back of the line just to help me have a visual reference. So I had left my pencil case at home. Luckily, I had a book in my bag that I had paper, and in my car, I had pens. So I was able to at least fashion my own overcard so I could keep track of things. But I was very annoyed with myself that I had forgotten my equipment. You actually feel that you are missing part of yourself when you don't have all your equipment. And yeah, it says fill in the captain's report and the team sheet. So you can fill all that in for the captain. So all they need to do is grade the umpires. You can put there, like it says, you fill in Premier Division, the competition, if it's 2-day, 50 over, T20, whatever the case might be, the date, and then the home team and the away team. Some of them might ask the venue where it's been played, so you fill all that in. So when you give it to the captains with the name of the umpires, so if Tom and I were umpiring, it would be Tom Mokorosi, Mark Young, and so you give as much information to the captains as possible. All right, this is the last slide. So the pre-match duties. So when you arrive at the field, we know law book says arrive 45 minutes before. We always say try get there at least an hour before. Just the more time you give yourself to work with your colleague at the field and sort everything out, you are less stressed. Things go much easier. And we find that arriving an hour before players meant to start those 15 minutes make quite a difference. Okay, wait for your partner before going out to inspect the pitch and the field. So you don't want to be walking out there by yourself and maybe some players come and they ask you comments or whatever. And then when your colleague arrives, your colleague gives them a different point of view. You want to work as a team from the beginning, because remember, you and your colleague are a team. So you don't want to split that team before the guys even arrived. Wait for them to arrive, and then you can go have a look at the wicket. You can go have a look at the field, check your boundaries, which we'll get to later on in here. Confirm that both teams have the correct match balls. So make sure that both teams, if they need to use a Kookaburra 4-piece, that both teams have a Kookaburra 4-piece, or they need to use a one of the brands we've used here as Winner. It must be a Winner 2-piece. Okay, they both have a Winner 2-piece. Okay, agree the boundary and allowances for the boundaries. Are there overhanging trees? Are the side screens inside of the boundary? Whatever the case might be. So you need to agree on all of those. One, with your colleague, and then two, when we get to having this discussion with the captains, you're going to convey that information to the captains. So again, there will any obstacle within the boundary be regarded as a boundary. Okay, synchronize your watches, okay, with your partner and the scorers. So again, something that was mentioned earlier is it's very important that you keep the same time, because it's for drinks, for your intervals. You don't want to be standing there and you tell the bowler or the fielding captain, oh, there's four minutes to drinks. So he thinks, oh, he can bowl a spinner and a pace bowler, because the spinner will get through the over quickly and then he can take a little bit more time with the pace bowler, and your colleague says, no, there's 2 minutes. Again, that separates you as a team because you're giving different information to the captain. And also the scorers write down when a batter's innings has commenced. Remember that law where as soon as he steps onto the field, his innings has commenced. So you want to have the same time as your partner and the scorers. Okay, again, check, are the wickets properly pitched? Very often you'll see that the stumps kind of make a V. So they actually pitch too close together at the bottom, and then at the top, in order to accommodate the bails, they've had to spread them out. So in that situation, you'd have to check and say, sorry guys, we need to repitch these stumps so that they are pitched correctly. It can take some time to do that, because if it's a very hard track, you might need to get something to fill in the holes, maybe some extra bully, and maybe a little bit of water to make it a little soft in those holes. That's why you are arriving early at the ground, so you can check these things so that it doesn't delay the start of play. We spoke about the tape measures earlier. Measure your creases, the pitch length, and the fielding restriction circle if applicable. So usually if you're playing limited overs cricket, for senior open men, it's a 30-yard circle, which is 27.4 meters. So you will check that that is correctly marked. Very often you'll find people think, oh, 30 meters, and they mark the circle at 30 meters, which is incorrect. It's 27.4 meters, which is 30 yards. One thing that I've done on my tape measure is I've actually taken a permanent marker, and on the important length, so the length of the pitch is 20.12 meters, I make a black mark on my tape measure. For the circle, 27.4 meters, I make a black mark on my tape measure. For the creases, 1.22 meters from the bowling crease to the popping crease, I make a mark 1.22 meters. It's just so that it's a visual cue to help me remember on that there. Obviously check that the side screens are in line. If you do this before the game, it again stops time wasting during the game if if it's badly out of place for a batter to ask for it to be moved, because usually some side screens are very heavy and they might require quite a few of the fielders to leave their positions to move the side screen. Obviously, small adjustments, maybe now you've got a left-hander and a bowler is going to come around the wicket and the side screen needs to be adjusted a little bit. Those you can't really foresee, but you want to make sure that things are as close to perfect as possible for the start of the game. Obviously, check where the covers, the roller, and the sawdust are. This is if, again, you can ask the home club, do they have these things available? So that you know, yes, they have sawdust available. No, they don't have sawdust available. Okay, that's now going to affect how you proceed if there is rain or anything, or how you handle wet spots on the grass, or whatever the case might be. What tools are available? Do they have a selection of rollers? Do they have one roller? If they only have one roller and they want to roll between innings, well, there's one roller. If they have multiple rollers, then you ask, okay, do you have two? Do you have three? How many do you have in that regard? And obviously where the covers are. So if again rain comes and the pitch needs to be covered, you can direct the fielding team to those covers. Obviously ensure that the covers are dry. You do not want to be putting water onto your pitch, even inadvertently, because that is going to change the condition of the pitch, and now your game is no longer equal for both teams. Make sure those covers are dry. Okay, at your pre-toss discussion with your captains, both umpires need to talk. So usually there you are given a very brief overview of some of the playing conditions. So what I like to do is I'll just say, if this was a toss and I was speaking, I'd say, okay, gentlemen, obviously today we're playing a 50-over game. We have our power plays in the first 10, only 2 fielders outside. then up to the 40th, up to 5, up to 4, sorry, and thereafter up to 5. Obviously, no more than 5 fielders on the leg side at any time, no more than 2 behind square at any time. All no balls will result in a free hit. You allow 2 bounces per over. Then I will say to my colleague, I will deliberately not say everything. And then I will turn to my colleague, and like I could say, Tom, what do you have to share? And it's just so you're going over the playing conditions so that the captains are informed, because maybe the actual captain hasn't arrived and now there's a stand-in. They need to have all that information. Again, if there's overhanging trees for boundaries, boundary allowances, times for drinks, all of that needs to be shared at your pre-toss discussion. This is something that if you've played cricket, and even after being an umpire for a while, you'll be able to tell how a pitch is going to play, but don't have that discussion with the players, because then it might be seen as you're favoring one team. If a particular team happens to get there a little earlier and they say, hey, umpire, the pitch looks a bit dry, you think it's going to turn a bit, it's going to break up. If you say, yeah, it's probably going to turn, so, and then what happens is players can be very crafty. It's like, oh, you think it's going to break up and turn, so you think we should bat first. And inadvertently, you'll be like, yeah, I'd bat first, because obviously it's not going to break up in the first innings as much. Now, if the other team heard that, they must say, oh, well, umpire's giving advice to the other team. So try to stay away from those discussions. And lastly, as Tom covered very early on, before calling play, the bowlers and umpires to check with the scorers. Remember, we start from the outside, check with the scorers, then with our partner, then with the fielding captain, and then with the batter at the crease. And when everyone's ready, you call play. Okay, and when you're on the field, you make your decisions. You can only give what you see. Obviously, if it's to check with a catch carried or whatever, you can confer, but LBWs, you're making that decision. If it's a nick behind, you are making that decision. We are human. Mistakes happen. Don't carry it on to the next ball. Okay, once you've made that decision, you've made that decision. Enjoy the game. I wouldn't have been doing this for as long as I have been if I didn't enjoy cricket, and I absolutely love it. So go out there, have fun, stick to your decisions, and at the end of the day, enjoy yourself. That is me. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much, Mark, and great to have your experiences shared. We do things slightly differently here in Western Province. I like that idea of umpires reviewing a pitch. Maybe something that we can look at adopting here at Western Province Cricket Association. So Mark, you're welcome to unshare your screen, and everybody is welcome to switch their cameras on, as we're going to have an interactive question and answer session. Abdullah, we're going to start with your hit wicket decision for Brendan Taylor. We've watched the video a couple of times. What I can do is I can put it on again as you talk through it, and I'm going to put it on mute so that you can do the commentating instead of that commentator who was, quite confident in his decision. But was it the correct decision? Abdullah, I'm going to share my screen and start playing the video again on mute, and you can talk us through what decision you would make for this particular incident. Let me just switch the volume off first. There we go.
Thank you so much, Tom. Okay, so while it's playing, so when it comes to the hit wicket law, first thing that you need to consider, did the bowler enter his or her delivery stride? So in this instance, yes. Then the question that you need to ask yourself is, when giving a batsman either out hit wicket or not out hit wicket, let's say out hit wicket, did the bowler enter his delivery stride? Yes. Was what he did in the course of action to him playing a shot. That is out hit wicket. Not out hit wicket. Did he complete his shot, or did he complete playing at the ball? If the answer to that question is yes, he's done with his shot, and then he put on his wicket, not out his wicket. If he is still in the action of playing a shot, or you put down the wicket while playing a shot and the shot is not completed, then out his wicket. So we need to ask ourselves here, looking at the shot, did he complete his shot? So look at the shot. It's a late cut down to third man. So that's the shot that's Brendan's playing. So looking at the shot, if the shot was trying to hit the ball or late cut the ball down to third man, that was the shot. And then after completing that shot, so in my opinion, the shot was the late cut. Brendan was done playing the late cut. So Brendan completed his shot. And then, just look there, you'll see now again, the late cut, done with the shot. Shot is now done. Now this action, shot is done already. Now he puts his wicket down. So the law protects Brendan here. Once he's completed his shot, and after completing his shot, then he put down his wicket, not out hit wicket. So in this case, Brendan should be not out hit wicket because he's completed his shot. Over, Tom.
Thank you very much, Abdullah, for that thorough explanation. Just to let all the candidates know that the TD umpire actually gave that decision out. It is an opinion law as to whether the shot was complete or not. And in the match referee's review of the umpire's performance, the umpire was marked down for an incorrect decision. Okay, his opinion was judged to be an incorrect opinion because clearly the shot was complete. So don't feel too hard on yourself if you got that one wrong, because an international umpire also got that one wrong. But please, guys, Abdullah has given us the thorough law as to how we should determine whether a batter is out or not out hit wicket. So well done to those of you who said not out hit wicket. Right, so now I'm going to go through the chat box for all the other questions and comments. And I'm glad that a lot of you actually participated in that out or not out. What's important, and the mistake that a few of you made, was giving the batter out and saying that the ball is still live. Yes, the ball is still live, but the shot was complete. So not out hit wicket. Right. The question that we are going to go to now is from Venkatesan. The bowler has delivered a fair delivery. The batter tried to play a sweep shot. The ball touches the striker's pad and then goes and bounces on the ground. After it bounces on the ground, only then does the batter hit the ball in the air to a fielder. Is that out caught, Abdullah, or is it not out? Do you understand the scenario, or you want me to repeat it again?
Understand the scenario, Tom. Venkat, the important words in your question is the ball hit the ground. And as soon as the ball hits the ground, even after that, if it makes subsequent contact with the ball, with the bat, and then gets taken by the fielder, it will be not out. The ball should not make contact with the ground. If I change your scenario and you remove the words ball hit the ground, then you can give the batter out caught. But as soon as the ball makes contact with the ground, even if there is subsequent contact with the bat after that and it gets taken by any of the fielders before touching the ground, your decision should be not out. Ball made contact with the ground. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. Next question is from Greg. He asks, with the mancad, if the bowler is past the 90 degree, is he or she still allowed to execute a mancad? To my knowledge, if he or she has passed the 90 degree, this is then in their bowling action, so a mancad cannot be affected. So Greg, I think you say past the 90 degree, so let me just try and show you my bowling action. I'm a left-handed bowler, so my right hand, which is higher up in the air, is my leading arm. And then I think you are saying if I pass this particular point, I can no longer affect a mancad. That's 90 degrees. No, the law says that the last point at which you can affect a mancad is when your arm is at the point of expected delivery, the release point. Okay, so even though you are in your bowling action at this point, and you are in your bowling action at this point, you can still stop and break the non-striker's stumps only if you reach this point. And the video that was shown of Adam Zampa attempting a run out, you would have noticed that the producer stopped, paused the video at this point, and that is exactly what the umpire wanted to see. And the umpire, the TV umpire, asked that they carry on a little bit further forward to show that they had passed, Adam Zampa had passed the expected release point. So it's not at 90 degrees, it is at 180 degrees, I think that is. That your opportunity as a bowler ends to affect a run out at the non-striker's end. I hope that explains your question. Next question
Tom,
is
just
from
Tom,
yes,
if I can just add something there. So the important words there is the release point. Different bowlers will have different release points. You'll find someone like what's Malinga's full name? Lasith Malinga. If you can visualize Malinga's action, Malinga didn't come with the shoulder over the arm or where the shoulder gets to 90 degrees. Malinga had a slingy action. So the important thing that you need to take note of is the normal release point of that particular bowler. If the bowler is past the release point, then the bowler cannot affect the run out of the non-striker anymore. It needs to happen before the bowler gets to the release point. Over, Tom.
Sorry to
clearing that up. Yes.
Sorry, Tom, to interject. The reason I asked that question is because we were playing a 1C game and the bowler went basically full rotation and was about to release a ball, and then similar to what Zampa did, went through and ran out a non-striker basically before he was going to release a ball out of his bowling action and was given out. So I know it's quite difficult for umpire to see if he's through his bowling action and he's about to release. Are we allowed to overturn or overrule if a decision was made already to give out?
So Greg, that is why I recommend that any decision on a run out at the non-striker's end, the bowler's end umpire calls and signals dead ball and goes to his or her partner at square leg to go and confer as to whether the bowler passed the expected release point or his or her normal release point before affecting the run out. And both umpires, if they know the law, should have given the non-striker not out because the bowler had gone past the expected release point. So unfortunately, it sounds like those umpires either A, did not confer, or B, they conferred and they both didn't know the law, and they gave the batter out incorrectly. Unfortunately, the umpire's decision is final. And you know the process is, if you disagree with an umpire's decision, you can write in that captain's report that Mark showed us, and that comes through to us as the training department of Western Province Cricket Umpires Association to make sure that we upskill those umpires so that they don't make that same mistake again when there is a appeal for man-cad run out at the non-strikers. Greg, I hope you can become an umpire and realize that it's not that easy. Your heart beats a lot faster when there's an appeal for man-cad. I can guarantee you that. And you know that it's going to be a decision that upsets either the batter or the fielding side. So not an easy one, but if you know your law and you give the reasons for your not out or your out decision, then the players should respect you for that. Thanks for that question and the explanation, Greg. Next question is from Mr. Pinar. On a no ball, the striker misses the ball and it goes through the wicket keeper. The batters decide to go for a run. If the wicketkeeper drops the ball after catching it and then throws it and hits the wickets, does this qualify as a run out? Yes, Mr. Pinar, because a run was attempted, then the wicketkeeper can affect a run out. If there wasn't a run attempted and the striker merely double stepped to try and hit the ball but missed the ball and it was a no ball, then that animation video told us that the batter cannot be outstumped and is also protected from being run out. That is if they are not attempting a run. But if, as in your case, they are attempting a run, then a batter can and should be given run out. Next question is from Abdul, and it's about timed out. Does the time start immediately after the fall of wicket or the moment that the batter starts leaving the pitch? There are some batters that take their time for leaving the pitch, showing their disappointment or their dissatisfaction at the umpire's decision. So Abdullah, when does the clock start ticking in terms of a timeout law?
Abdul Samad, the clock starts at the fall of the wicket or at the retirement of a batter. So the second that the wicket falls, the clock starts from that moment. So the incoming batter, as per the laws of cricket, has 3 minutes from that time, from the moment the batter was dismissed, to get to the wicket. Over, Tom.
And that is why Mark mentioned that you write down the time of a wicket falling. And typically what we do, or we should do, is as soon as the wicket falls, you look at your watch to see what the time is and write that down as soon as possible so you do not forget it. Next question is from Jandre, and this has to do with a clicker. So I'm going to give this one to you, Mark. Do umpires that stand at a higher level, let's say international level, have a special clicker, or do they also use the triangular ones that you showed on your presentation, and you can buy those from Sportsman's Warehouse? Mark, over to you.
So I have seen that some international umpires have a silver one in their hand. Personally, I've actually never seen one of those, but I'm going on the assumption that the fact that he's standing at international level and is using that that is something that they are allowed to use, that it works for them. At the end of the day, it's something that needs to work for you, that you can keep track of balls, so that you don't lose count. Because remember, the over counted by the umpire stands. So if you count a 5-ball over and you call over, even at international level, it's a 5-ball over, but they're going to notice it a lot more at international level than at club level. But a majority of umpires that I've seen will use those ones that you can buy here in South Africa from Sportsman's Warehouse, those little triangular ones. I'm not sure where you would get those metal ones, but yes, as long as you can keep track of the balls, keep track of the overs, that is the most fundamental thing. You don't want it to be one that if you drop it, I've seen there used to be older ones, they were rectangular, that you just press down 6 little things. But now if you drop that and it landed on those pins, then it could press all of them. And now you don't know what ball were you on. You've got to recheck with your colleague. You should be rechecking with your colleague anyway. Once a wicket falls, when you get together, oh, that's 3 bowled. Yes, that's 3 bowled. Or maybe there was a run out and your colleagues clicked and you didn't. And you'd be like, okay, so that was the second ball. Like, no, this happened first ball, second ball. Now we had the run out. Okay, so now you can check that. The clicker can only click in one direction. It can't go the opposite direction. So it's very unlikely that you're going to mess it up if you put it in your pocket or whatever. It needs quite a bit of, not a lot of force, but a concerted effort to make it click. I hope that answers the question, Tom.
Yes, very thorough. Thanks for that answer, Mark. Another one for you, Mark, from Mr. Pinar. Do umpires use team sheets for schoolboy games, or is it only at professional levels where there are team sheets? Myself and Abdullah don't do much school cricket. I think you do a lot more than we do. What do you use? Are there team sheets at schoolboy cricket? Please, Mark.
So at schoolboy level, so first teams, we usually don't ask the captains for team sheets because the coaches will already have given those to the scorers. So what we will do is before we go out to toss is we'll actually just check with the scorer, have both coaches giving you their team sheets. Or if there's no assigned scorer, it's usually going to be one of the coaches that is scoring. So we'll just confirm with that coach, has the other team given you their team list? But we're not having the captains, because sometimes in a school game, your coach is the one making the final decision on the playing 11. It's not always the captain who knows who's going to be playing until they walk onto the field. Obviously, if it's a higher tournament, then yes, we will ask the boys, please give us your team sheets at the toss. So, for example, if it was a national week, then we would expect the captains to give us those team sheets at the toss. But if it's regular school season cricket, we will confirm that the teams have been given to the scorers before we toss, but the captains are not giving us those team sheets at the toss.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Mark. Just for comparison's sake, at international cricket, teams have to produce at least 4 team sheets per team. One goes to the umpires, one goes to the opposition team, one goes to the scorers, and one goes to the media. So it really does get more intense the higher level you go, and is always a big thing because team sheets cannot and should not be revealed before the toss, because of course there is betting allowed on the makeup of the side, and those bets are usually taken up until the toss, and the official team sheets are only released after the toss. Last question in the chat box. I'm going to give this one to you, Abdullah. Do the umpires or the umpire predict the swing or spin movement of the ball hitting the wicket for a leg before wicket decision? So do we assume that a ball is going straight, or do we need to consider swing/seam movement, or the way the ball is turning when we consider a leg before wicket decision, Abdullah?
Thanks, Tom. Yes, there are lots of things to consider when giving an LBW decision. So to answer your question, if they are swing or spin in the pitch, it's an important factor that you do need to consider. Other important factors that you need to consider is where the batter is standing deep inside his crease, um, foot on the popping crease halfway between the legs, a foot outside the popping crease, 2 feet outside the popping crease. Um, Things that you need to consider is height. Where did it hit the batter? Below the knee roll, on the knee roll, above the knee roll. Other things you need to consider. Good indication where the ball is going is did the keeper move to the leg side? Other things to consider: how close the bowler is to the stumps. Is the bowler close to the stumps? Um, for midway to the stumps, wide of the stumps? Is the bowler coming over or around the wicket? These are just a few of the things that you do need to consider when making an LBW decision. In South Africa, there are things that you need to consider is which grounds you are playing. If you on the Highveld, so what I mean by the Highveld in South Africa is some of the grounds like in Gauteng and Pretoria are like 2,000 meters above sea level. Their pitches are much more bouncier than other grounds at the coast. So when you get to Gauteng or the Wanderers, where the Lions play their provincial cricket, when you get to Pretoria, where the Titans play their provincial cricket, those pitches are much more bouncier than if you go to somewhere like Durban or Kabega or even Newlands. So even grounds you need to take into account. Some grounds are much more bouncier than others. So yes, lots of factors that you do need to take into account when adjudicating an LBW decision. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dylan. Another question has just come in from Nhla Lenhle. If the ball hits the non-striker's stumps and goes up, the bowler catches it, it is considered out caught. Yes, Nhla Lenhle. As long as Abdullah mentioned, the ball has not bounced on the ground, then any part of the equipment of a batter, an umpire, or even the stumps are part of the game. So if the striker hits the ball straight back towards the stumps at the non-striker's end, the ball does not at any point touch the ground. It hits the stumps, goes up in the air, and a catch is taken by the bowler or any other fielder, then that striker will be out caught. There's a incident in New Zealand against England last year in England where a New Zealand batter hit the ball straight back at his non-striker partner, and the ball hit the bat of the non-striker and went up in the air and was caught by the cover fielder, and that was out caught. Because the ball has not hit the ground, it hit any part of the field in terms of equipment, stumps, player, umpire. As long as the ball doesn't touch the ground, then it will be out caught. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all the questions we have in the chat box. I do not see any hands raised to ask questions live. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for their interaction this evening. A special thanks to Mark Young from KwaZulu-Natal Inland Umpires Association, who has joined us and presented the match preparation presentation. All the best for your umpiring career, Mark, as well as everybody else on this call. I have spotted some Western Province Cricket umpires members refreshing their laws. Good to see you, lady and gents, here tonight. And we shall reconvene again on Monday. We shall be going over all the slides that have green text in them. Abdullah will take us through revision, as well as any videos that are also examined in the Level 1 Cricket South Africa exam. After Abdullah has gone through the revision, I will take you through the click-by-click demonstration of how to register, log in, and start answering the online exam. So that way you will be fully prepared when the exam window period starts next week, Friday. Have a great weekend when it comes. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.